Welcome to the Indie Author Showcase. I'm Chad Robert Morgan,
And I'm Alexander Scott Morgan.
my reluctant sidekick who is secretly trying to get us canceled after the first 5 episodes.
Yeah, no. That's not like me. I can't believe that you would spread slander about me.
That's not slander if it's true.
No, I did that. It's almost like you don't pay me.
That's all you're worried about is money?
Yeah,
Dude, if we were worried about money, we wouldn't be indie authors.
I mean, I'm out here getting that bag.
Well, not much is true. So, a while back, we did WonderCon. And we met a group of authors. They were actually brothers writing as a team, the Cheney brothers. Remember them?
Yeah.
So just recently, I interviewed Jeff Cheney, one of the 3 brothers.
Right.
So you managed to sneak out of that interview.
Yeah,
Yeah, you escaped somehow. How'd you do that?
easy. I went bowling
You went, but
with the boys.
so how dare you go out and enjoy your summer? What's wrong with you?
Ah! I went bowling with the boys, and I only got the second worst out of 20 people. I'm goated.
Well, while you were out enjoying bowling, I was having the interview with Jeff Cheney.
Maybe I should have interviewed him about bowling.
That would have been an interesting interview.
Yeah, take him bowling.
I don't know how well we would have heard them over the bowling pins and the strikes happening.
Easy. Rent out the bowling place completely.
I think that would be a little bit past our budget.
Fine, buy expensive mics.
Again, past our budget.
It's really not this hard.
We are broke motherfuckers. Have we not mentioned this before?
No, we are very palpably rich. I actually fly into a helicopter every day to school.
Aha.
Yep.
In your own delusional mind,
I
maybe.
land every day on the science building where it had the big comical helicopter H on it.
Right. So anyway, while you're living in your fantasy land, let's go on with the interview with Jeff Cheney. And we're welcoming Jeff Cheney to the Indie Author Showcase. So Jeff, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm a science fiction author. I write mostly military science fiction, space opera. I write with my 2 of my brothers. We have written together. We've written 5 books. I have to stop and think. We've written 7 books altogether, counting mine that I've written by myself. We have a series called the Reckoning series that we started writing. The first book came out in 2008, Dead Reckoning. We have 4 books in the original series. The 5th book should come out this summer. So we have Dead Reckoning, Day of Reckoning, Force of Reckoning, and Final Reckoning that completed what was supposed to be a trilogy when we started it, but it kind of expanded itself as we wrote. But that ended the first story. We're starting the next part of the story, but it's all part of the same series, and that's Internal Reckoning, which, like I said, should come out this summer. We also wrote a collection of short stories using some of the main characters from that original grouping of stories. And then I wrote a prequel by myself called Forged by Betrayal. And then because I write just a little bit faster than either one of those, I don't know, either one of my brothers, I don't know if I have just more time than they do or if I just like writing more than they do, but I always end up with more time. So I took some of that time and I wrote a murder mystery on a space station, and that's called Music Box Murders. So all of those are available on Amazon and Kindle and Audible. Forged by Betrayal, we also released onto
I think you're saying it was on Chirp.
On Chirp, right? Yeah, that's we released. That's the first time we've done that. We're just trying to expand what we do and see what kind of success we have with that. We only did that a couple of months ago, so that one just came out on Audible a couple of months ago, and so I haven't really seen what kind of results we're going to get with that yet. But it's out into full open distribution everywhere. So we're hoping that will allow us to get a little bit more success with that offering than some of the others where they're just completely onto Audible and no other options. So we'll see. Hopefully that will work for us. But that's what I've done so far. Like I said, we've got the next book in the Reckoning series will be out this summer. And then the next book in the Freedom Station series, which is the Music Box Murders, should also be coming out in August. Because like I said, I write just a little bit faster than them, and I finished all of my writing for Internal Reckoning, and so I'm just waiting for them to get done with their chapters so we can start editing on that one. And then I'll go back to that one. So
how does that work writing with your brothers? I would think that would be kind of a logistic problem, multiple people working on the same book.
It was, we thought that it would be an interesting thing. When we first started, Craig worked about a block and a half from me where we were at, and then Jared worked maybe 6 miles from us, and so we would meet every Friday for lunch, and we would go through what we had planned. We would set goals. This is where we're going to be by next Friday, and we'd hold each other accountable to get that writing done. And we had individual chapters that this chapter's yours, that chapter's mine, this one's yours. But we thought going in that each person's writing voice is going to be different, and it's going to be hard to make the whole book sound like one person or like one voice. And so in the first book, we decided that rather than try and fight that, we would kind of buy into that. And so we wrote in first person. And so each chapter had a different character writing that chapter. And so we kind of wrote each chapter like journal entries. And this person's writing what happened to him in this chapter, and this person's writing what happened to them in this chapter. And so we moved the thing along, basically first person. And then that way each person kind of knew their character, knew what they would do, how they would react to things. And it made it pretty easy to get through the chapters. We kind of had to set firm ground rules at the beginning. These 15 things have to happen in your chapter, and you can't be going off killing people, and you can't be going off bringing in new characters, because if I'm writing chapter 20 and I'm way ahead of you here, and I've got chapter 20 written already, and you kill off this character here, and I've already got them saving everybody here in chapter 20, that's not going to work. So we had to be really rigid with our outline and have it all planned ahead of time, which is not always the way that I like to write by myself, but it worked for us when we did it that way. By the time we got to the second book, we really didn't follow through with that, because we found that by the time we got to the end of the book, we kind of all wrote in a similar method, and by the time we got done editing every chapter 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 times, that we kind of had the same voice, and we could kind of mask any deviations from that. So yeah, it changed after the second book, and matter of fact, we had, by the time we got to the fourth book, our process was that whoever owned the chapter got the final edit, and they got to say, yeah, this is the way it's going to be. And everybody could suggest changes, but whoever owned the chapter, they got to make the final decision. And so Jared finished his edit on the chapter and he sent it back to me. He said, okay, make the final decision on this chapter and let's get it done. And I went, well, that's not my chapter. That's your chapter. He goes, that's not my chapter. That's yours. I go, well, it must be Craig's. And so we sent it to Craig and he goes, that's not my chapter. So we didn't even know who it was supposed to belong to. We had to go back to the outline and see, oh, well, it is my chapter. I guess I'll make a decision. So
did you do that when you were younger, when you had the chore wheel? And it's like, no, it's not my turn to do the dishes. It's
No, it never worked that way because I was the oldest one, so I was always right. So it was always their turn.
See, I appreciate the fact that you guys as a family can actually work together, because in my household, I don't succeed because of my family. I succeed in spite of them.
Yeah.
I am usually doing the podcast with my reluctant partner in crime, but Alex is out enjoying his summer at the moment. Alex is just the right age to be useful, but still young enough that I can order him around. I figure I got about 2 more years before he's old enough to say, screw you, Dad, and he can leave the house and do whatever he wants. And then I'm all by myself. So I'm trying to maximize just that sweet spot of being 16.
Yeah. See, we got lucky in that we had a pretty big family, and I was one of the older ones, and Craig was kind of in the middle, and Jared was the youngest. And so Craig kind of grew up with me, but we didn't really grow up together because he's 6 or 7 years younger than I am. And Jared is like, I don't know, 14 or 15 years younger than I am. So I didn't grow up with him. He was only like 5 or 6 when I graduated from high school, moved out of the house. So, we don't have a lot of these internal issues from growing up as much as if I tried to work with a couple of the older brothers that I grew up with. We would argue just because he said the sky is blue, and I don't think it really is, because that's the way we grew up, of arguing about everything all along as we grew up, where we don't have to really fight that because we didn't really grow up together. So luckily that's the kind of the way it has worked out for us, that we're not fighting old battles anymore. We're just starting new ones.
So what attracted you all to science fiction?
Okay, so I started off with the Heinlein juvenile books when I was about 8. My mom used to get those from the library for me, and so I started reading all of those, and then I found the Anne McCaffrey books, and so it just went on from there. I read all of those, and then I found Mercedes Lackey, and then I found this other one, and then I found this other author, and I just kept going from there. And so I've always been reading them, which kind of triggered me to write them. Yeah, I kind of read everything. I shouldn't say I just read science fiction, but I started reading Mary Stewart and her King Arthur books, when I was 10 or 12, which kind of ties into the same fantasy, Star Wars fantasy, science fiction, fantasy, romance, whatever, historical fiction. And I love murder mysteries. So consequently, that's why I had to write one at some point. But I just read constantly. And so I always, as I read a book, I always think, well, I wouldn't have quite done it that way. I think I would have done this a little bit different. And so that's your
inner editor starts kicking in.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like, oh man, ever since I was in high school, I've been doing that. It's like, oh man, I think I would have done that just a little bit different. and so at some point I had to start writing them a little bit different. So
You come out of the movie, that character at the end just didn't feel natural, and I was like, just shut up, I just want to enjoy the movie, that kind of thing.
Or the worst thing for me is I'm one of these people who catches all of the little tiny details, and it's like, they can't do it quite that way. That's not right. It's like, come on, just enjoy the story. No, that ruins the story.
Oh God,
got to do it right.
Yeah, I don't get me started. Every time I see people pulling out the paddles, and I'm like, no, that's not how you use those,
That's not what we're. Yeah, I know. It's like I ruined so many dates in high school. But we are who we are. But
what got you into specifically the military sci-fi? Because we read and are going to review Dead Reckoning for the show, and I enjoyed it way more than Alex did. So for the show, we both read the books, and Alex and I tend to have very different viewpoints of the books because, obviously there's a huge age gap between us, 16 and older than dirt. So myself, I really got into Dead Reckoning because it was military, because I was military. So I appreciated the rigid journal entries and the idea that some of this was coming from tribunal records and trial recordings and things like that. I kind of got into that. I dug that, and I could kind of see where that coming from different voices made sense. Like you're talking about where you and your brothers were writing from different characters' viewpoints and stuff like that. What kind of got you doing a more militaristic style sci-fi versus something like Serenity kind of thing, or a Han Solo kind of character?
Well, two parts to that. I used to work as a civilian contractor for the U.S. Army for 15 years, and so I was a tank mechanic. That's
nice.
So that's my background. I did that for a long time, and so I associated with the military for a long time. But not only that, part of what I enjoyed reading, when Tom Clancy first started writing books, I loved reading everything that he wrote, and so that kind of book is a lot of my background. I just like that kind of book. But when the three of us decided to write a book, we each had books that we had been writing for years, and rather than get into the whole this is my book, we're going to do it my way kind of situation, we decided that we needed to write a book that didn't belong to any of us. And so we decided to start from zero with a book that was not one that any of us had started already. And so at that point, I had just finished reading a trilogy of books based on the Mutiny on the Bounty. And so the first book in the series is the Mutiny on the Bounty, and they're all true. They're all based on the facts of the events. The second one is called Men Against the Sea, and it talks about Captain Bligh and his loyal crew being put off in a longboat out by Fiji and set out in the ocean, say, there you go, that's all you got, we're taking the boat and you guys are on your own. And he got the crew back around the Barrier Reef to Van Diemen's Island, and then back to England. And so that was the story that we used. We just moved that up into space, and obviously had to adapt the story quite a bit from on the ocean to in space. But so it kind of had a military feel to it already. But So it was kind of a combination of those things. You know, that I read a lot of military science fiction. I read a lot of military non-science fiction. And so when we took that basic story, that was kind of the direction it went.
Yeah, my military science fiction is a bit different. My military science fiction is if it was written by the guys from South Park. So
I read a little bit of that too.
yeah. Mine is like if you took your book and filled it with dick jokes. Totally different vibe.
Yeah, there's some old books that came out in the late 70s, early 80s, written by Harry Harrison. The stainless steel rat is the main character, and those are incredibly hilarious. But those are very much that kind of book. I love those books. Those are funny.
So we actually met at Comic-Con this year. So how did Comic-Con treat you?
We were hoping, we did WonderCon. I have to think back. It's been 6 or 7 years ago now that we did the first one. And we were hoping to do a lot better this time just because we only had 3 books done the first time we did it. We were hoping to have a better experience. We did about the same as we did the first time. It still was really good for us. We enjoyed it, made a lot of contacts with people and felt good about it. But it just seemed like the sizes of the walkways and stuff was hard to push people towards the booths, and we didn't get as much contact as I would have liked to, but we still did pretty well, and it was fun. I enjoy talking to people and working with everybody that walks by, whether they buy a book or not, just having that experience of talking to them. So yeah, I think like I say, we did probably volume about the same as we did the first time. But it did seem a lot slower than the first time. I don't think there were as many people in front of us as it was the first time. And like I say, I don't know if it was just the size of the walkways or not as many people there or where we were sitting this time versus last time. Yeah, it could be a number of things. But like I say, I enjoy talking to people as they walk by and talking to the other authors. My brothers always give me a bad time because I leave them standing at the booth while I'm off talking to all the other authors because I just like talking to everybody. So it is what it is. They know who I am and they know they're going to get stuck with that. So
Reach you.
Comic-Con is one that we do. We've done it every year. I think we're going on 8-9 years now. We've done that one. It tends to, at least for us, it seems to be more centered on readers, and we do really well at Comic-Con. I don't know if we just have found a spot, a good aisle or a good area, and have people that we have people that come back and go, "Hey, I've got everything. I just need to know what you've got new this year," that keep coming back to us, that have we had one guy that came, I can't remember if it was last year or the year before, and he says, "I need whatever you've got new." And we're going through the books and we're like, "Yeah, I think you have this one. I think you have this one." And he goes, "No, I don't have that one yet." And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm pretty sure you bought this one last year." And he goes, no, I didn't buy it. And so he bought that one and the other new one that we had. And so I went back through our books and I pulled up from our records from last year. Yeah, he bought this last year. So he's got 2 of them now. And I was like, okay, let's set this aside. He's going to be back. And sure enough, he was back the next day. So, I really do have this one. Yeah, I know. Here, you can have this one instead.
That is a nice feeling when they come back, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's good because when you have good people that know you and you know them and can relate to them. So I really like FanX for that.
I am just starting that process. So I, just to let you know my story, 2 years ago, my boss at my day job had a booth at Comic-Con he wasn't going to use.
Oh, yeah.
And he was like, well, I don't want to lose it. So he let me borrow it. And so I did Comic-Con, and I way over prepared. So I had all these books. And so I'm like, okay, well, now what am I going to do with them? So I started looking for other cons. And so I've been doing this for about 2 years now, doing different cons and stuff like that. So I'm way earlier in my building my fan base than you are. But it is a really good feeling when you have somebody that, like, I saw you last year, I got your book. What's your next one?
Right, exactly. That's feels so good when you have people that you can connect to, and they you don't have to sit and explain, what's this about? What kind of book is this? You just, they know where you're at and what you're dealing with, and excuse me, what you want to sell them and what they want. So it's a good place to be.
You were mentioning FanX.
Yeah, FanX actually. I was thinking FanX when you said Comic-Con. Sorry,
No, that's all right.
The Salt Lake Comic-Con used to be, or the Salt Lake FanX used to be called the Salt Lake Comic-Con, and so that's kind of where my head goes. But FanX is what I was thinking of that we've been at for. They do a lot of author panels and whatnot, and so they tend to bring in a lot more readers there in Salt Lake. But that's the one that we've been to forever. Craig, since he used to live up here I live just outside of Portland, and he used to live out here too. But he actually lives down by Hill Air Force Base, which is just north of Salt Lake. And so he's down there close. And so that makes it easier for us to do that one consistently.
So what are your next conventions? What's your schedule coming up?
So at the beginning of September, I am at the Southwest Washington Writers Conference. I'm doing a presentation there. And then at the end of September, we're at FanX again in Salt Lake. And we don't have anything else set in stone from that point. We're planning on doing something else again in March or April, but we haven't. We're looking at 2 or 3 different things, either Emerald Con up in Seattle or possibly back down to WonderCon, but we haven't decided on anything for sure yet. So that's all the plans we have right now. We want to see if we can get those 2 books done before FanX in September. And work towards that.
Sweet. And where can people find you?
All of our books are available on Amazon, on Kindle, and on Audible. They're also Forged by Betrayal is available on Chirp. And they're all available on our website, which is 7seasbooks.com, or on my website, which is jeffreylcheneyauthor.com. There's links for all of them. You can get autographed copies on our 7seasbooks.com website. They're all of them are available with autographed copies at the same print copy cost. This doesn't cost any extra. We'll ship those out to you autographed. And like I said, everything is available on Amazon. So.
And what's the last books you're finishing up again?
So the last books we're finishing up will be Internal Reckoning, which will be the next book in the Reckoning series, and then I'm finishing up. It's called Black as the Dark of Space. It's the next book in the Freedom Station Mysteries series.
Very cool. Well, Jeff, it was a pleasure to have you on the Indie Author Showcase, and I look forward to seeing you at the next con.
All right. I look forward to it. I'll come find you.
All right. Until next time.
All right. Thanks.
So that was the interview with Jeff Cheney.
Wow, that was great.
He's doing that because the first take he went to 11, and so I told him to dial it back. So now he's pulling it down to a 2 just to mess with me.
Because my throat hurts.
After yelling at the top of your lungs.
I wouldn't call it yelling. I would call it screaming.
Yeah. So after the interview, we actually talked a little bit about after when he's ready to launch one of his new books, actually doing an interview again, but getting all of his brothers on. So he actually, I think he said he had 5 brothers, but he writes with 3 of them, right? So it would be a podcast with you, me, and 3 of his brothers all on the screen at once. And he said that would be just kind of chaos. And I said, well, you've obviously never seen the podcast. That would just fit right in. Yeah, because we just ramble on and as we are anyway. So just adding more voices to it would just be par for the course for us. So, but yeah, we discussed having him back for when he launches one of his new books, and to have his brothers along for the ride. So I look forward to that. I think that'd be a lot of fun if we do that.
Yeah. I'm just saying it would be.
Yeah. Okay.
What do you want me to say?
Not frap.
Do you want?
I don't know what.
I said yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. What do you want? What do you want from me?
English. I think we should go with English.
I can speak English.
That would be nice.
I was speaking English.
That would be a pleasant change.
I can't believe. Why are you gaslighting me, Father?
That's not what gaslighting.
You're gaslighting me.
Not what gaslighting.
You don't know that.
I do know what gaslighting.
You don't know
means.
that.
I understand how English works.
You don't know that. You don't know that you're You don't know what gaslighting is.
So let's go ahead and wrap up this episode. Let's wrap it up as we do every episode. Where can our fans find us next? What are our upcoming conventions? You should be ashamed of yourself. Shame! Shame!
Oh, my Gutenhausens. My Glutenhaus.
So what's the next convention coming up? We have HorrorCon, September 14th and the 15th.
Well, we got HorrorCon, September 14th and the 15th.
Yeah, it's easy to remember when I just say it, yes.
Well, maybe if you said it a little bit louder, I remember it better.
Uh-huh. Then the weekend after that.
And the weekend after that.
We have, what do we have after?
What do we have after that?
Come on, tell me. What do we have after HorrorCon?
Check my calendar app. Give me a second.
Uh-huh.
I am pulling it up. I can't find it.
Uh-huh. So after HorrorCon, we have Creep IE in Ontario.
Yeah.
And then in October, we will have Son of Monsterpalooza.
Yeah.
So we're going to have a very busy September.
Yeah.
Now, on top of that, this is still tentative, but our friend Scott Campbell is going to be down in San Diego Comic-Con, and it looks like I will be down there to help him. So we won't be down there doing our books, but I will be down there helping our friend Scott Campbell do promote his book, which is he is actually finishing up. He says he's got 2 chapters left, and San Diego Comic-Con is next month. That is insane. He's finishing the book, and he's got to get it published for Comic-Con next month. That's crazy.
Sounds about right.
Yeah.
Maybe if I was there, I'd be able to finish that book up.
Right.
'Cause that's what I do best.
Finishing books?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's just because you write the end and you call it done. Yeah.
That is finishing a book. My Fazale.
So, where can they find us online?
Shop. SpectralInc.com.
ShopSpectralInc.com, where they can find our books, they can find our merch.
Did I get it?
You got it.
Did I get it?
You got it. And you just spiked the audio on that.
I know. I'm gonna mute it.
And you wonder why I say you're secretly trying to sabotage the podcast.
I would.
It's not even a secret. You're just outright blatantly trying to sabotage the podcast.
Never.
You spiked again. So, anywho. So, catch us next week where we're going to review Brian McNulty's The Half Murders, and after that we are going to review a series of novellas called So You Survived the End of the World.
Yep. Next week.
So until then, I'm Chad Robert Morgan.
Yep.
And this is Alex Morgan over here being a little bit of a butt.
What? I am checking my messages.
Instead of doing the podcast.
Why can't I do both?
Because we're supposed to be doing a podcast.
Anyways, I gotta hit him with a little toodaloo. Toodaloo.